One thing I like to watch sometimes is giving characters from different series Pokemon typings. It's something that seems so simple, but honestly it looks kind of fun to do. Or at least for me it is. So I wanted to make a video like this, but with the Marvel Rivals roster. Now this idea isn't entirely new, but I just wanted to do it and put my own take on it. Plus with the Rivals roster expanding every month, there are a lot more heroes to do this with. I also have given all the heroes dual typing, since while some of them couldn't make sense as just one typing, I think it would be a lot more interesting if they had dual typings. I also want to mention that some of these heroes I will give them honorable mention typing, since I think there are some type combos that fit them well. Last thing is that since there are pretty much over 50 heroes in the game, I'm gonna be pretty short and brief with all of them explaining why these typings make sense for them. So without further ado, here are my types I've given to the heroes in Marvel Rivals. First is Adam Warlock, and I have decided to give Adam the Psychic and Steel type. These types fit pretty well with him since he's referred to as the perfect being. Steel will represent his durability he has, and Psychic will represent his high intellect but also can represent his cosmic powers. Next is Angela, and I gave her the Fairy and Fighting type. Fairy represents her being an angel, since Fairy represents the good or the light side, and Fighting represents how much of a highly skilled warrior she is. Next is Black Cat, and I gave her the Dark and Normal typing. Dark represents her stealth, especially when it comes to Robin for Fortune, and Normal is mainly because she is just a normal person without superpowers. Next is Black Panther, and I have given him the Fighting Steel type. Fighting for his combat capabilities, since you do have to defeat all the other champions of Wakanda in order to become Black Panther, and Steel represents his suit, which is made of vibranium, which is one of the strongest metals in Marvel Comics. Next is Black Widow, and I gave her the Fighting Dark type. And the Dark types definitely for her be a lot more stealthier when it comes to missions. Next is Blade, and I gave him the Dark Steel type. Dark for him being a vampire and things that usually seems as evil or unholy usually end up getting the Dark typing. And Steel is for, well, I mean, come on, it's Blade. Do I really need to explain why Blade, out of all the heroes, gets the Steel typing? Next is Captain America, and I gave him the Fighting Steel. Fighting for his combat capabilities, but also could represent his leadership role in the Avengers, and Steel is to represent his shield. Next is Cloak and Dagger, and I gave them the Fairy Dark type. Fairy represents Dagger, since Fairy is usually associated for the light side, and Dark type for Cloak, since he represents darkness. Although I did consider giving him the Ghost typing, mainly for his ghost-like appearance and how he can make his allies vanish in game, but I think the Fairy Dark typing fits them better. Next is Daredevil, and I gave him the Fire Fighting type. Fire represents that in the game he uses Hellfire with his abilities, and Fighting for his usage of his clubs. Next is Deadpool, and since he has 3 versions of him in the game, I gave each of them a typing. Tank Pull is a Dark Steel, DPS Pull is Dark Fighting, and Support Pull is Dark Fairy. The Dark typing for all represents how much of an anti-hero Deadpool is, and also for his healing factor, since he usually gets himself shot, slashed, ripped in half, and so much more gory stuff. The Steel represents the tankiness of Deadpool, Fighting for how much more aggressive DPS Pull is, and Fairy for the support and healing of Support Pull. Next is the newest hero, Devil Dinosaur, and I gave him the Fire Dragon type. Fire because of his origins, him being exposed to fire triggered his mutation. Dragon because he is a T-Rex, and if Tyrantrum has taught me anything, a T-Rex is a dragon. Next is Doctor Strange, and I gave him the Psychic Dark typing. Psychic represents his magic, but also his intellect as Sorcerer Supreme. Dark is for in-game how he releases dark magic onto his foes. Next is Elsa Bloodstone, and I gave her the Steel Fighting. Steel for the weapons that she uses to hunt monsters down, and Fighting for expertise when hunting down these monsters. Next is Emma Frost, and I gave her the Psychic Steel typing. Psychic for her mind control and the ability to read others' minds, and Steel for her being able to harden her body into an organic diamond. Although another typing I thought for her could have been Psychic Rock, for Rock could also represent her diamond body, for gemstones usually get represented as rock types. Well, besides you. Next is Gamma, and I gave him the Psychic Fire type. Psychic for his kinetic energy ability that he's well known for, and Fire for how he can release that kinetic energy to make a big boom. Next is Groot, and I gave him the Grass Fairy type. Grass, well, because he is Groot and he be walking tree guy. And fairies to represent Groot's gentle and good kindness that he usually represents. Next is Hawkeye, and I gave him the normal Steel type. normal for him being a normal person, and steel representing his bow and arrows. Next is Helen. I gave her the dark ghost type. Dark to represent her being evil, and for her also known as the Queen in Black, especially season 3 of Rivals, and Ghost for her being the goddess of death and the ruler of hell. Next is Hulk, and I gave him the Psychic fighting type. Psychic is supposed to represent Bruce Banner for his high intelligence, and I would also imagine he gains the fighting type when he becomes Hulk, and fighting for, well, Hulk! Smash! Next is Human Torch, and I gave him the Fire flying type. Fire because, well, he's a Human Torch, he's on fire all the time, and flying because, well, he's flying all the time. Next is Invisible Woman, and I gave her the Psychic Ghost type. Psychic to represent her being able to create force fields, and Ghost is to represent her being able to disappear. Next is Iron Fist, and I gave him the Fighting Dragon type. Fighting for him being well trained in the martial arts, and Dragon for him being blessed by a dragon to become the Iron Fist. Next is Iron Man, and I gave him the Electric Steel type. Both of these represent his suit, with steel being the actual armor his suit is, and electric could be the power of his suit or also for his heart. Next is Jeff, and I have him as a water dragon type. Water because he's just a cute little shark, and dragon just felt very fitting for him. Next is Loki, and I gave him the dark ice typing. Dark mainly because he is the god of mischief, and ice type because he is part frost giant. Next I have is Luna Snow, and I gave her the ice fairy typing. Ice because, well, she's Luna Snow, and fairy to represent how flashy she is for being a K-pop star. Next is Magic, and I gave her the dark steel typing. Dark for her being the queen of limbo, and steel for her sword. Next is Magneto, and I gave him the steel psychic typing. With steel being his metal bending powers he's well known with, psychic could also represent this, but it could also represent him being able to block anyone from being able to read his mind. Next is Mantis, and I have given her the Bug Psychic typing. Bug representing her name and her bug-like appearance, and the Psychic typing comes from her being able to sense others' emotions. Next is Mr. Fantastic, and I gave him the Psychic Normal typing. Psychic to represent his high intelligence, and Normal to represent his stretchy powers. Next is Moon Knight, and I gave him the Dark Fairy typing. Dark to represent the moon or the nighttime, and Fairy to represent his more magical or mystical side, or the powers that have been given him by Khonshu. Next is Namor, and I gave him the Water Psychic typing. Water for him because he is an Atlantean and the ruler of the deep, and Psychic is his ability to command the oceanic life. I also thought of giving him the Water Flying type because of the wings he has on his ankles. Next is Penny Parker, and I have given her the Bug Steel typing. Bug, since I feel like all Spider-Man would have the Bug typing to them, but it could also represent her Psychic link with Spider, and Steel would just represent Spider himself. I also thought of giving her the Bug Electric typing for her being able to shoot electro webs. Next is Phoenix, and I have given her the Fire Fairy typing. Both of these typings fit very well with the legend of the Phoenix, since Fire represents the Phoenix being a flaming bird, and Fairy would represent the mystical powers or the rebirth of the Phoenix. Next I have is Psylocke, and I have given her the Psychic Fighting typing. Psychic for her being able to use a Psychic blade and be able to read minds, and Fighting for her being a well-skilled warrior, be able to hunt down yokai. Next is Rocket Raccoon. I've given him the Electric Steel typing. Both of these typings represent all the gadgets Rocket uses, Electric being more plasma or pulse, and Steel being representation of his guns. Next is Rogue, and I have given her the normal fighting typing. Fighting because she is well known for her hand-to-hand combat. For normal, I thought it would have been maybe an interesting idea that if she touched one of the other heroes, she would change out her normal typing to that hero's typing. Next is Scarlet Witch, and I gave her the Dark Psychic typing. Both of these typings are for her representation of using chaos magic. Next is Spider-Man, I gave him the Bug Fighting typing. Bug for him being Spider-Man, and Bug just makes a lot of sense, and Fighting for his hand-to-hand combat. Next is Squirrel Girl, and I gave her the Normal Grass typing. Normal for her ability to control scrolls, and Grass for her uses of acorns as weapons. Next is Star-Lord, and I gave him the Flying Electric typing. Flying since he's been seen flying a lot with his boots, and electric for his guns. Next is Storm, and I have given her the Electric Flying typing. Both of these represent her powers, with electric being able to control lightning or thunder, and flying being able to control the wind. Next is the Punisher, and I have given him the Dark Steel typing. Dark for how brutal his methods of justice is, and Steel to represent his arsenal of weapons. Next is the Thane, and I have given him the Rock Fighting typing. Rock for his rocky appearance, and Fighting for him being a large fighting golem. I also considered giving him a ground/fighting type, since I think that also could work well, but I do think rock fighting fits him way better. Next is Thor, and I gave him the electric steel typing. Electric for him being able to control thunder, and steel would represent his hammer. I also did think that electric fairy could also work for him, for fairy could be representing him as a god. Next is Ultron, and I've given him the steel dark typing. Steel for him being an android, and dark for his evil intentions of getting rid of all organic life. Next is Venom, and I've given him the dark psychic typing. Dark typing for Venom's appearance and him being an anti-hero, and second is his bond with Eddie, but also could represent the symbiote mind hive set. Next is White Fox, and I have given her the fairy fighting typing. Fairy for her being a mystical fox, and fighting for her combat with her claws. Next is Winter Soldier, I've given the normal steel typing. Normal for him being just an enhanced human, and steel for his mechanical arm. Finally is Wolverine, and I've given him the dark steel typing. Dark for him being pretty gruesome, either he's being ripped apart or he's ripping someone's apart, but also could be for his healing factor, and steel is for his adamantine skeleton and claws. So those are all my typings I've given for each hero for Marvel Rivals, and what do you think? Do you agree with my picks, or do you have something different in mind for some of these heroes? I'd love to hear them down below. But that's wrapped today's video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, hit that like button. If you're new to the channel, hitting that subscribe button will always be appreciated. And I'll see you in the next one. Peace out. Have a good one.